And so, Eric, the second question, it says recommendations for protection against COVID in a workplace where physical distance is not always possible. Should we wear protective gear or avoid returning to work? I mean, I was covered that topic, broadly when I talked about the risk matrix and the personal risks against the feasibility of your workplace. I'm just curious to get your perspective on, additional comments from what I said earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is really covered on the website quite a bit, and it's the return to work and school guidelines. So now I'll share my screen if I can. Let's see what I can do here. Show my screen, and then we'll pull up the Crohn's and Colitis website. So if you go to the crohnsandcolitis.ca website, you'll see the COVID-19 section, and then go down to guidance. And way at the bottom is reopening of schools and the economy. And that's where you'll find information about back to school, back to work, and what sort of recommendations we've made. And they are, as Gil mentioned, age-based. So if it's back to school, back to work, assuming there's no severe inflammation and not on steroids, high-dose steroids, then back to school is a reasonable thing to do. And if the child is actively inflamed or on steroids, the parents, the family members anyway, should do all of these things. And this actually brings to point one of the other questions, which was if I'm immunosuppressed, taking multiple immunosuppressive agents, and I live with multiple family members that are still working outside the home, what should I do? What should they do to protect me? And this is where the recommendations are. They're here that if your household member, good hand hygiene, washing your hands for 20 to 30 seconds as soon as you walk through the door, or even outside would be better with hand sanitizer, social distance, physical distancing if possible of other family members who might be outside the home, adhere to public health guidelines of trying to stay 2 meters apart, avoiding in-person meetings and so on, use services for vulnerable people, and clean the residence as best as possible to avoid transmission. And that's where the Centers for Disease Control guidelines come in, which are shown here. You can click the link to see about cleaning and disinfecting the house as often as you possibly can. And then back to work here for adults. Really, the guidance is the same. So if you're not on high dose steroids, if you're not having severe inflammation or moderate to severe malnutrition, we can talk about what that means in a second. You're fairly safe to work outside the home. Personally, I would recommend wearing a mask. I think two things that the mask does is it may protect other people, so protect you from coughing or sneezing or spreading saliva around to other people. But also, very importantly, it protects you to a certain extent because it prevents you from touching your mouth. And if you want to wear a visor on your eyes, that will protect you from touching your eyes. So it prevents you from going constantly and touching your face and touching your mouth and things like that. So good idea to wear a mask if you're able to at work. But essentially, otherwise, those instructions are all here and you can read about them. The seniors is a little bit more difficult, obviously, because of the risk of serious COVID-19 and hospitalization and death in seniors. And so I think, again, that's what Gil talked about in terms of assessing what your risk is and deciding what your risk tolerance is, deciding what you're able to do and maybe what you can avoid doing.